I recently photographed a Bring a Trailer auction with my Nikon Z7 Mark I, and last week that auction set an all-time high sales record for Porsche 356 Replicas. And when I say all-time high sales record, I mean it was the most expensive 356 replica that has ever sold in history. The particular car was built by Intermecanicca, and even though it was a replica, it was still a very beautiful machine. From looking at this graph on Bring a Trailer, we can see that the average sales price for a 356 replica is roughly $50,000. And the previous sales record belonged to another Intermecanicca 356, which sold for about $86,000. But the car I photographed sold for nearly twice that. There have been several other examples of Intermecanicca 356 on Bring a Trailer, with many selling for less than the $50,000 average sales price. So why did the car I photographed sell for over 3 times more than the average 356 replica? 2 reasons. The car I photographed was a little nicer than the others, but the main reason is that the pictures make it look like something that belongs in a museum, especially when compared to photos of other Intermecanicca 356s that have sold on Bring a Trailer. So let's go into the technical details of why these photos look so good and why they encouraged bidders to shell out 3 times more money than they usually do. If we look at the photos of the second highest selling 356 replica, we can see that they're good, but if we compare them to the car that I photographed, it's easy to see why one auction got more bids than the other. When comparing the photos from the second highest auction to the auction I photographed, there's quite a few differences, but the one that comes up the most is the distance that we chose to photograph our subjects from. Most of the photos I took were from farther away, and this can make the pictures look more professional for several reasons. The closer you get to your subject, the more barrel distortion is created by the lens, which can enhance certain angles like 3/4 shots, but when getting head-on shots of the profile, front and rear of the car, it distorts the subject in unflattering ways. Photographing from further away also softens your foreground and background and helps to make your subject look sharper and more heroic. And allowing more of your location into your frame also helps to add interest to your subject if done correctly. If you're wondering which lens I used for this photo shoot, it was the Nikon Z 24-70mm f2.8s. Another big difference in our photos is the location. The other photographer chose an open location with lots of visual distractions, while I chose a more closed-off location that directs more attention to the car. And when I photograph cars, I always select locations that have perfect 45-degree angles, meaning that the ground the car is sitting on is perfectly flat, and the objects in the foreground and background are aligned with the ground at 45-degree angles. All of these 45-degree angles help to direct the viewer's attention toward the subject. In this picture, we have a background that tapers off away from the subject and into the distance, which distracts our attention away from the car. And in this picture, which was shot at the same angle, we have a nice brick wall that sort of forces our attention directly to the car in front of it. One of the locations that the other photographer chose was a beach, which matches the free-spirited 1950s California ethos of the Porsche Speedster, but some of the images contain too many distracting elements. I mean, the beach is nice, but the thing that really catches my eye in this image is the railroad crossing and no train horn signs, which aren't things you want to associate with taking your Speedster for a drive. Placing the car a few feet forward or a few feet back would have kept the distracting sign out of the image. Another thing I focus on when photographing cars is perspective. While many of our photos are from roughly the same angle, I adjusted my perspective slightly higher or slightly lower to create a more flattering view of the subject. I also try to use as shallow a depth of field as possible. For certain shots, you want more of your subject to be in focus, but if everything is 100% focused, the image will look flat and uninteresting. A more shallow depth of field helps to draw the viewer's attention where you want it, and it also gives you more creative control and helps your images to have an overall more professional feel. If you're finding this video to be informative or interesting, please give it a like. And if you're new to my channel, I make lots of videos about automotive photography, so if that's the kind of thing you're into, click below to subscribe. Another big factor that separates our images is lighting. Both the other photographer and myself shot on an overcast day with full sunlight, but the other photographer had the car parked in a completely open area while I used a location with walls, which helped to add some variance in the lighting, and I placed the car in areas where the light was the most contrasted, which helps drive focus towards the subject as opposed to photographing a car in the open where the light is the same throughout the entire image. Photographing in an open area can look great, but it needs to be done while the sun is closer to the horizon. Another important factor in creating pleasing images is editing. While this is a well-framed picture that was shot from the right distance and perspective, the image looks dull and flat and doesn't really grab our attention. But after spending a couple minutes editing the image, I was able to give it a little more of a wow factor. Here's the original image, and here's the one I edited. And as you can see, the edited picture is much more flattering and heroic. It's got more depth of field and vibrance, and just looks more professional. And when it comes to editing, I don't use any kind of plugins or LUTs or any predetermined filters or settings. To get the best out of each of our photographs, they need to be edited individually with a less is more approach. And if you're wondering, I use Pixelmator Pro to edit my photos. It does the job, but there are much better but also much more expensive options out there. Now, there's a lot of people who say that cars sell themselves and professional photos don't matter. And if you're auctioning a legitimately one-of-a-kind vehicle like a concept car, that might be true, but if the car you're auctioning was mass-produced and dozens, if not hundreds of other people are selling a similar car, then your photos will be a determining factor in how much money you get for it. And let's be honest, which one of these cars would you spend more money on? If you would like to learn more about my photography, my website is linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and for more videos about automotive photography, click here to subscribe.